Hello and welcome to this video. We're going to be looking here at layer groups and locks. Let's take a look at layer groups first. I don't see layer groups much different from putting a whole batch of images into a folder. So when we've got a layered project where the layers are becoming perhaps just a little unwieldy, as you can see on the right hand side, what we can do is put certain numbers of those layers into groups. Now, as you can see, I've got a background set of soldiers here, and they are the ones I'm just turning off now, leaving my original set of soldiers at the top of the layered stack. And if I turn them on one at a time, you can see they're all individual layers, but if I want to put them all into a group, I just need to select first the ones I want within the group. Well, here I want them all, so I'm going to select Soldier 9 and Soldier 1 using the Shift key, and all of those in between will be selected. I'm going to right click and group them from layers. I can choose a name here, I can even choose a color, but I doubt I'm going to have that many groups that I need to color code them as well. I'm just going to click OK for the moment, because you can see if I do that it just defaults to a name of group 1, but I can double click and rename this group anytime I want. I'll call them Soldiers Large for want of a better title, but what you can see here, if I open up this batch of layers, they're still within my group. So I still have individual choices of which ones I want to show, but I can just for convenience lock them back up into our group. Now let me turn them back on, because there's one or two other things we can do. First of all, while the soldiers are all in the group, with my move tool I can move them as a group as well, which could be quite useful. And if I had the need to resize them, I can hit Ctrl T and I can resize my soldiers too within that group, which also could be quite useful. On this occasion though, I'll just escape that free transform tool. And of course we can put the other soldiers in to a different group if we wanted to. Right click, group from layers, Soldiers Small, and OK. Within our photography there's not a massive need to create groups within layers, but there are some projects over the years where I felt the need to do that. One of those was when I was creating a jigsaw puzzle effect on a large image, and I created each piece on its own separate layer. Well, you can imagine that the layers gets very unwieldy then, so I just chose to put each row into a group. They were then much more manageable and I was able to control them much easier. Now of course from time to time we may want to ungroup our soldiers. That's pretty easy. If I go to my Soldiers Large here, right click alongside, I've got an opportunity to ungroup the layers. There they all are. Let's do the same with the small ones. Ungroup layers, and we're back to where we started. As you can see by the image I have on screen, I've given the rest of the soldiers their marching orders. Sorry about that. We've just got one soldier sitting on a transparent background, because I want to look at the locks along the top of the layers here. We've already had some experience of this one where we're going to lock the pixels and prevent any color being flooded into the transparent area. So to try to keep this a little bit practical, let's give the soldier a shadow. I'll drag him down over the copy icon at the bottom of the screen, but Ctrl J will also do that. I don't have to swap the order here, but I'll leave that one as number 4 and just rename this one Shadow. No real need to do that, of course. Sometimes it's just useful. And if I were, let's turn that layer off, if I were to flood this layer with black now, the entire layer is going to be flooded. Control Z will undo that. But if I click the lock to lock the transparent nature of that layer and then hit Alt Backspace, then of course those pixels are restricted to just the shape of the soldier. What I'd like to do is to blur that a little bit and maybe even distort it, so I would need to remove the lock to be able to do that. Let's turn the top soldier back on but keep the shadow selected. I'm going to go to my edit menu, choose transform and distort. I'm going to drag my soldier out and I'm going to give him a weird and wonderful shadow, and I'm going to hit the enter key to commit that change. I can soften the shadow too by going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, so I can give it some softness. And of course if we applied another layer and I just flooded that with white, I could drop the intensity of the shadow down using the opacity. So a little practical exercise, but where we demonstrate the power of the first lock. And if I keep my cursor dead still, we may get a tooltip, perhaps not, but what that will do will always protect the transparent areas in a layer. To look at the next lock, I'm going to select my soldier layer, the color one, and I'm going to apply the lock. Now if I keep my cursor still, the tooltip is going to say lock image pixels, and what it's doing is preventing us from making any changes to the pixels just on the soldier. So you'll notice I've got the move tool here. It's not going to stop me from moving the soldier, but if I pick up my brush, you can see we have a no entry sign, so we cannot change anything by brushing black over the soldier. If I were to bring up my hue and saturation palette, well in fact I can't do it with the keystrokes because they're grayed out, because I've locked everything to do with editing the soldier itself. If I remove the brush, then of course I have all of those opportunities to start making changes. Now moving back into the layers palette, the next lock we can see is an identical icon to the one we see on the far left at the top of the toolbox, and as you can see the tooltip has appeared that says lock position. So if I apply that lock and I use the move tool to try to move the soldier, well, Photoshop is telling us, sorry, I can't do that because you've locked the layer. But I can still pick up a brush, for example, and I could paint over my soldier if I wanted to. Control Z will undo that. Now the next option is something relatively new. I'm going to turn this lock off and I'll hover over this one so we can quickly read the tooltip. Prevent auto nesting into and out of artboards. Now artboards is not a subject that we're dealing with here, so I'm going to skip past that to the final lock on the right hand side, and you may expect or know what that's going to do. If all of these do something individual, this one locks everything. Now we cannot do anything to our soldier layer. We cannot edit it, we cannot move it, nothing whatsoever. Coming over to the soldier, my brush has the no entry sign. Moving it, can't do that. Control U, I cannot bring up the hue and saturation. Control L, I cannot bring up my levels. Everything is locked, so I couldn't make any changes to that layer until I remove the lock. But that is a quick and easy thing to do. We just click the lock either to the right of the layer thumbnail or back up on the top right.